In recent years, there has been much talk among Bangaloreans about the garbage situation. Usually, such conversations are limited to environmental activists and NGOs. However, now even the common man seems to have woken up to the garbage mess which directly affects him. NGOs and activists have been promoting segregation at source as the solution to the garbage crisis, and this has now become the mainstream discourse. Though the average Bangalorean talks about the increased use of plastics, the landfill mess and global warming, in reality, very little translates into action. At the end of the day, citizens are only concerned about why their garbage is not picked up regularly or why the garbage dumps are not being cleared. So why isn't the garbage picked up? Why are black spots being created? And can segregation in itself solve the garbage crisis? With the garbage situation getting worse by the day and with increasing questions about possible solutions, here is a look at the reality from ground zero and what needs to be kept in mind before we jump to conclusions about solutions to handle the garbage situation in Bangalore. There are three main aspects in understanding the present situation: garbage pickup, garbage collection, and end disposal of garbage. Let's take a look at what is currently happening in Bangalore. In Bangalore, garbage pickup is done by Paurakarmikas with their push carts and by garbage collection autos. These garbage collectors pick the garbage from households, commercial establishments, small and medium-sized apartments, and also clear the garbage on ground. Bulk waste generators, especially large apartments, who account for about 40% of garbage generated, are mandated to manage their own waste. About a decade ago, the BBMP replaced the system of street corner bins and introduced door-to-door collection. If we look at the changes that have occurred in the type of waste we generate now compared to that of a few decades earlier, it makes sense why we had to stop dumping everything into one large bin in the street corner. The varieties in plastics, e-waste, and other newer forms of waste make the entire process of handling waste tricky given the limitations in existing waste disposal solutions. Door-to-door collection was meant to address this problem by encouraging segregation at source and collection directly from homes. However, people are yet to get used to this new system. Although the street corners do not have dustbins anymore, people continue to treat these areas as official garbage dumping spots, thus creating black spots in almost every street corner. For example, we have counted 98 black spots in the Konankunte ward alone, and the BBMP authorities in Dasarahalli zone told us that on an average, every ward will have at least 50 such garbage spots. During our attempts to make segregation happen at households, we realized that only about 50% of homes hand over garbage to the BBMP. The remaining 50% of people simply throw their garbage on a street corner, in an empty site, or in a lake. Even people who hand over garbage are not segregating, and this is true in 90% of the city. This is despite the continuous attempts by NGOs and authorities over the last 4 years to make segregation at source happen. The garbage collectors unload their daily pickup into the compactors and garbage trucks, which then go to the landfill for dumping. However, the regular garbage pickup gets affected many a time by the situation at landfills. At this point, majority of Bangalore's 3,500 tons of garbage generated each day ends up at the landfill. Due to frequent strikes by various organizations opposing the use of landfill, garbage unloading gets affected. When the garbage cannot be unloaded, the collection next day is not possible. This is the major reason why door-to-door collection does not happen regularly, prompting people to dump garbage wherever it pleases them. Attempts have been made by the BBMP to provide decentralized options for collection and further separation of garbage by starting wet waste and dry waste collection centers. For collection of dry waste, the BBMP plans to have 204 dry waste collection centers or DWCCs spread across the 198 wards in the city. Of these, around 50 are currently operational. When dry waste is brought into these centers, they are further manually separated into about 15 categories and sold to resellers. These resellers in turn sell this dry waste to recyclers, most of whom are not licensed to operate. Dry waste such as kurkure packets, low-value plastics, cloth, leather, mattress, furniture, thermocol, etc. have few or no takers for recycling, and they are sent to the landfill. Each DWCC at present is only equipped to handle a maximum of 1 ton of dry waste per day. Even if all the DWCCs are functional and operate to their full capacity, they can only divert about 5% of Bangalore's garbage from going to the landfill. Unlike dry waste collection centers, there are only a few wet waste collection centers. Wherever these exist, an organic waste converter with a shredder is usually available. While small composting facilities have sprung up in few wards for handling the wet waste, larger units such as the Karnataka Compost Development Corporation are also functional, though not to its full capacity. However, items such as plantain leaves, coconut shells, and garden waste which are not compostable are not accepted in the smaller composting facilities. Therefore, these items are also sent to the landfill. There is no provision at present for proper collection of sanitary and biomedical waste from households. The only two organizations who handle biomedical waste in the city are Ramki and Maradi, who primarily pick up biomedical waste from hospitals. Household sanitary waste is meant to be collected separately and sent to designated hospitals for disposal. However, it is yet to be implemented properly anywhere in the city. While major IT companies manage their e-waste through relevant service providers, there is no separate provision for collection of e-waste at a household level, and it is meant to be sent to the DWCCs for now. At present, majority of Bangalore's garbage ends up at landfills. There are 7 landfills in the outskirts of the city which are nowhere close to being scientifically managed, polluting the land, water and air around it. The villagers around landfills face various health hazards. This sadly becomes an excuse for some organizations who, in the name of taking up the cause of the affected villagers, disrupt regular functioning of the landfill. To settle the matter and allow garbage trucks to dump, authorities are often made to pay ransom to these organizations. Apart from this, landfills have become a main source of income for several illegal immigrant waste pickers who don't seem to mind the stench and inhuman conditions here. Attempts are being made to find alternate solutions and avoid landfills, although much of it revolves around segregation at source. While NGOs and activists have made a lot of noise about segregation at source, They have dumped the onus of implementation on the BBMP. Neither the BBMP nor NGOs have so far succeeded in making segregation at source happen except in insignificant bits and pieces. Honestly, despite having made segregation happen successfully across 3,000 homes, we still feel that it is a distant and far-fetched reality to see it implemented across the city. The attempts of the civil society have resulted in decentralized solutions like DWCCs, but it does not answer many questions about end disposal. For example, DWCCs send the dry waste to resellers who in turn sell it to recyclers, most of whom have no clearance from Pollution Control Board and are not licensed to operate. The emissions from such recycling units are unchecked and unknown, and the extent of the hazards caused is completely unaccounted. While the civil society makes a hue and cry about alternate solutions such as waste to energy, gasification or incineration, they actively promote illegal immigrant waste pickers to feed their centers, grey markets like Jolly Mohalla to sell the dry waste, and hazardous recycling units as end disposal solutions. End disposal solutions need to keep in mind the behavioral aspects of Bangaloreans, the current packaging trends, the availability of real estate, and the limitations of decentralized solutions like composting. The reality of unaccounted mixed waste in the city is something solution providers have excluded from their thought process when it comes to proper end disposal. The only disposal solution at present for mixed waste is the landfill. Any attempts to provide solutions need to include the proper disposal of more than 90% of Bangalore's garbage, which will be mixed waste in the current scenario. Segregation at source is more important as a pain point to make people conscious about their consumption levels and the garbage generated. But it is not to be confused as a magic bullet for all our garbage problems. We need to wake up to the reality that solutions around composting and recycling alone cannot handle the enormous garbage crisis confronting us.